Gambling with an Edge with your hosts Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin. Bob Dancer is America's premier video poker writer and teacher. He's written 10 books, including Video Poker for the Intelligent Beginner and the best-selling $1 Million Video Poker. He helped develop the computer software Video Poker for Winners, and in 2004, he was inducted into the Video Poker Hall of Fame. Richard Munchkin has been a professional advantage player for over 30 years and is in the Blackjack Hall of Fame. His book, Gambling Wizards, Conversations with the World's Greatest Gamblers, is a testament to the many ways you can succeed at gambling. The goal of the show is that you'll be a more knowledgeable gambler tomorrow than you were yesterday. And now, here are Bob and Richard.
Good morning. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer.
And I'm Richard Munchkin.
Today our guest is sports handicapper Steve Fezzik, and we'll be talking about betting football with an edge. We'll be talking to Steve in a few minutes. We received an email at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. It concerned what I thought was a minor point in my weekly blog that I publish on Tuesdays in the Las Vegas Advisor website. In that blog, I said I tip at least $5 per W2G I receive at the South Point Casino. A player who never tips wants to know why I tip so much. Some of the jackpots are $1,200, and a $5 tip is quite a bit if you get a lot of them. I get paid to teach at the South Point, and often the attendees buy my books or software. Several of the slot floor people have attended my classes, and other floor people have suggested players come to my class. I do not want these people to say such things as, he might be a knowledgeable video poker teacher, but he sure is a cheap bastard. So I don't want to have any reason to complain to their bosses about me. So this $5 per jackpot is a way to buy their friendship, so to speak.
But you also tip at the other places you play as well, right?
Generally, no.
Okay.
I do not generally tip for jackpots. At the same token, I'm generally friendly to all casino employees at the South Point and mostly other places. Even if I have to argue for a point, I never make a scene or threaten to go to gaming. I want to continue playing there, teaching there, and have them as a sponsor of my radio show. I understand other advantage players don't tip, and I don't tip at most other casinos, but I'm in a different position than they are, at least at the South Point.
Yeah, with table games, it's different. Card counters, their edge is so small that it's really difficult to tip, because anything you do tip if you're a card counter is not going to be, they're going to be very unhappy with you, because you take these big swings, and in relation to the size of your swing, the amount you could tip seems so tiny that it's almost insulting, and you're better off not tipping at all as a card counter. On the other hand, if you play more advanced forms of games, table games, I often tip a lot, and that's mostly because the dealer can just ruin the game for you. So you want to keep the dealer happy, and so it's actually important to tip. And, the kind of things I play, the edge is much, much larger, and I can easily afford to tip a lot. So, and people think that just means hold cards in it, and I'm not saying that at all. It's not just about hold cards. But, for example, let's pretend you were an advantage dice thrower, which I'm not a believer in, but it's a way for me to give an example. The dice crew can just kill you. I mean, they can just insist that both dice bounce off the back wall. They could just do a lot to screw up your game. And the same is true in many, many other forms of advantage play at the tables.
Good. I agree with everything you said, except I'm pretty sure the edges that big stake video poker players play with is significantly smaller than what they get on the blackjack table. But we can argue that elsewhere. Let's talk to our guest. Steve Fezzik is best known for winning the Las Vegas Hilton Superbook handicap contest back-to-back years, 2008, 2009. He has since scored in other major contests, and he regularly makes radio appearances discussing handicapping. Through the magic of radio, while this show is being originally aired, which is 4 days from when it's being taped, Steve Fezzik is also appearing on a local handicap show on the Lotus Broadcasting Network. Steve Fezzik, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
It is my pleasure to be here, and Richard, it's been quite a few years since you beat me in the blackjack ball.
Yeah.
Are you still holding a grudge?
Not at all. I was like in the World Series of Poker. What was it? Danahill. I can't remember the name of the guy that lost to Hatcham. Where I'm clearly not top 10 in overall, gambling knowledge and expertise, and kind of lucked my way into the Final Four and was just having the time of my life.
Well, good. Today we have an interesting thing. We are taping 4 days early. As we're taping, 3 hours ago, the Judge Berman Deflategate ruling came down, and like a half hour ago, the NFL says they're going to appeal. And within 4 days, there's just a whole lot of stuff that's going to go on about this. So anything Steve Fezzik says about this is going to see way out of date by the time it airs. If you want to wade into this, Steve, you're welcome to. But if you want to avoid it, we have plenty of other things to talk about.
Well, just real quickly, apparently it's not a crime or interfering with an investigation to throw out your cell phone or throw it against the wall and explode, and that's good news for a lot of sports handicappers, because I would imagine quite a few of them have done that after a key play. In all seriousness, I really think the Patriots and Brady for years probably pushed the limit on a lot of things, and they probably are making fun of all the other teams that don't do the things right. Like, why wouldn't you, if you could, have the ball at the lowest deflation level that's allowed by the league? Maybe they pushed the limit a little too far. I'm sure their gloves might have a little substance. I mean, in baseball pitch, every baseball pitcher has a beard that's 4 inches long. Why do you think they do that? It's pretty easy to hide stuff in a beard, and it distracts the batter a little bit to see that the facial hair flying around. So whatever you can do to get a small edge. He didn't kill anybody. I'm just shocked that they tried to hit him with a 4-game suspension, and he'll be playing and beating the Pittsburgh Steelers Week 1.
All right. Maybe he will. They're definitely favored. He's not had a good preseason, but he's got another week to figure it out. Okay. There are a couple new rules in the NFL this year. I want to discuss a few of them and ask how they affect handicapping process. First, on the conversion after a touchdown, there's 2 rules. One, if you want to kick, you need to do it from the 15-yard line instead of the 2-yard line. And second, if there's a turnover on the play and the defenders can get the ball and run it all the way down the field, 80, 90, or 100 yards to their own end zone, they get 2 points. Now, Steve Fezzik, do you see either of these rules affecting the lines or the totals or giving certain teams an advantage over others?
It won't affect the lines or the totals. It will skew the distribution of points. You used to want to buy on or off the 7 in the NFL for 10 cents, meaning if you're about to go to the window and bet +7, lay $1.10. It was better to bet +7.5, lay $1.20. Didn't usually turn a negative EV bet into a positive EV bet, but it made a positive EV bet just a little bit better because it's worth about 12 cents to buy on or off that 7. Now that I don't think that that's going to be the case. You're going to see more games landing on 5 and 6. A lot of times the chart would say go for 2, and the coaches wouldn't go for 2. They wouldn't look at the chart until the 4th quarter. Now I think late in the 3rd quarter, if you score and you're down 24-19, you may as well go for 2 because the expectation of going for 2 is about 46%, so 0.92 points. If you kick in good weather, it's about 0.96 to make a 35-yard field goal. So it's still higher in good weather to kick the extra point. So they'll do that the first 3 quarters. The exceptions is especially places difficult to kick field goals like Heinz Field and or whatever they're calling it in Pittsburgh. Hard to kick field goals in Pittsburgh, and as the weather gets bad, those kicks might well only be 85% ventures, and you may well see a lot of teams going for 2. I might add that one of the things that drove me crazy is that I have never seen a surprise 2-point conversion fail. It always works. It's like 111-0, and teams would never do that, and I never understood why they didn't do it, because it always worked. And now there won't be any surprise 2-point conversions because you can't effectively fake it from the 15-yard line.
Yeah, that's why I don't like the rule. I mean, it takes away that element of surprise. And you say that that they will do this because the charts say it, but I mean, have they suddenly smartened up? It seemed like they never were doing the smart, the mathematically correct play.
Well, Belichick and New England largely do, and what amazes me is you would think, if I'm playing blackjack and I see Richard Munchkin double down on an 8 against a 5, and I'm counting and I don't quite have the right indice for me to double down, I'm just going to shrug my shoulders, and I, too, am going to double down and hope he's not sneaking a peek at the top of the deck, and hope he's sneaking a peek at the bottom of the dealer's card. But for whatever reason, if Richard Munchkin is going to double down, I'm going to double down. And yet the other NFL coaches just don't copy what Belichick and New England do, and it's amazing to me. So you will see them be aggressive, them to go for it more on 4th down, them to start using that chart earlier for 2-point conversions. And a lot of the other teams, the old school coaches, still are, and even in terms of strategy, you still see teams kicking a field goal 4th and 1 from the goal line, which is just, it's crazy. A sharp 5th grader knows that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, and because of that, I mean, should you favor teams more that do have smart coaches that know enough to do those things?
Yes, and and this is one of the reasons I had a losing streak when betting the NFL. I had some bad years, and where I got in trouble is I relied and trusted too much of the math guys. The math guys would run the yards per play, and they'd say turnovers are largely random, and they'd keep landing on the Oakland Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars and all the bad teams in the NFL catching points, and the trend said that was the right play. And New England every year will gain like 5.5 yards per play and give up 5.2. Their stats don't make them look that much better than an average team, but yet they make every correct decision in game theory, and so they wind up winning those games by 10 points that they should win by 3, and they consistently cover. And it's completely counterintuitive. The very best teams, the public teams, cover more than half the time.
Would you put the Seahawks and Pete Carroll in that same group as the Patriots and Belichick?
Absolutely.
Now, the teams that have, like the Seahawks, have a beast as a running back, so presumably their ability to make a 2-point conversion is going to be higher than average, even if they did decide to pass in a similar situation during the Super Bowl. Would that make any difference handicapping-wise?
Bob Dancer throwing the Seahawks under the bus for the bad call.
Is it still too early for that joke?
Is it still stings? Is that what you're saying?
The funny thing about that is that was the rare case of Belichick dropping the ball where he should have called timeout. He clearly should have called timeout.
Agreed.
And he didn't, and he got away with it. So everything's results oriented because the Seahawks blew it with bad play call, and of course Russell Wilson doesn't have to throw the ball into that coverage. But they were like, oh well, Belichick did the right thing. No, he just got lucky. He made a rare mistake and got lucky. Although you could argue they got very unlucky with the David Tyree catch and their 2 losses in the Super Bowls to the Giants. They probably deserved to have won 4 of the 6 games. I don't think the Seahawks are necessarily going to be that potent offensively. They traded away their center Unger, who's very good, to New Orleans to get Jimmy Graham. So everyone's like, oh, Jimmy Graham in the red zone is going to really help this team. Well, it's true as long as Russell Wilson's not on his back, and that O-line is having all kinds of problems. I'm a big believer in that preseason matters. I think people tend to underreact to preseason results. The Seahawks season win number hasn't budged. It's still over 11 minus the $1.25, more bets on over than under at 11, and I don't see it. Chancellor's still sitting out. The defense, they lost a lot of key cogs. Their O-line has some problems. I think Seahawks should kick, long story, instead of going for 2.
Now, good, since on the preseason, other than season total on Seahawks, bet the under, which you essentially just suggested, did you learn anything else in the preseason, handicapping-wise, that you can pass on?
Sure. I think there's certain teams that the season has ended. It's all over. The Redskins are in complete shambles. The whole RG3, and I don't understand how James Andrews, that's the doctor that cleared him to go out so he could completely destroy his knee in that playoff game. How does he still have a job? No one ever says anything negative about him, but if you're the doctor and you okay a guy physically to go out there and 2 plays later his leg is shattered, you think, maybe go work and for some minute clinic or something. The Redskins' Cousins is not a starting quarterback, and the RG3 controversy is going to follow them. Maybe they'll cut him. Who knows? Or no one's going to take him because of his high salary. And they're dead. The Browns are dead. They had their miracle season where they won 7 games last year, but they have no skill position players and they have no quarterback. And one team that there was optimism, the Giants. They had all these injuries last year, and everyone forecasted them to be better. Well, now they've got all these defensive injuries this year. I think it'll be the last year Coughlin coaches the Giants. They're in deep trouble, and the Eagles are the wild card. The Eagles have played better than any team I've ever seen in the history of preseason, and the argument is no one has game planned for them. But nevertheless, they go out against Green Bay's first-string defense and they score 3 touchdowns. Bang, 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 and I am beyond impressed. And the Eagles have a new running back, they have a new wide receiver, and they have a new quarterback. So how is it that we can expect all these players to gel so quickly? I really want to see how they do in the first half against Atlanta to see if this is a little bit of a mirage or whether the Eagles really are the team to beat in the NFC.
Wow. I found that interesting, although I'm disappointed. I'm actually a Dallas fan because I was an American back when they were America's team. So I'm picking Dallas to win the Super Bowl, and I'm smart enough not to bet any money on it. Now, at this time of year, it's really a wild-ass guess from anybody to say who's going to win the Super Bowl. But with all your knowledge, you can give us a scientific wild-ass guess. So, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
No idea. Too many uncertainties, and in light of National Waffle Day, which was August 25th, I think I'll likely change my opinion 3 times over the course of the season as my power ratings change. The only team that I considered betting was the Eagles when they were back at 17-1 because the writing was on the wall that everything was going favorable for them. I was completely wrong on Dallas. I had them under 8 wins last year. They won 12. The defense still wasn't very good, but DeMarco Murray was so good, the O-line was so good that they were able to run the ball to keep the defense off the field and rested. I don't see that happening. They don't have a running back this year, and that's going to be a real problem. That defense still has a lot of liabilities, and Skandrick, their best cornerback, is now out for the year. So really part of the reason I'm so high on the Eagles is I'm so down, not so down on Dallas, neutral Dallas, but so down on the Giants, so down on the Redskins that they're almost getting a walk into the division title.
All right. Now, back to the rule changes. There was another rule on defenseless player protection. Last year, if a guy caught the ball and wasn't able to take 2 steps before covering up and you whacked him good, there was a penalty. This year, even if he doesn't catch the ball, as long as he's going for it, if you whack him good, there's a penalty. Now, so the defenses have to back off a little bit scores are going to have to be higher. Quarterback ratings are going to be higher. Receiving total yards are going to be higher. How does any of that affect handicapping?
Yeah, well, totals, wagering, and I glossed over the other point about the defensive touchdown counting for 2 points on the extra point. I think it's like over a 1 in 1,000 occurrence. There's 5 NCAA teams last year. Northwestern had one. I think Idaho had one. I can't remember them all. No, it was Utah State that scored on defense on an extra point. But at 1 in 1,000, that's not going to change anything. But what it will change is someone, Bob, is going to lose a bet laying 2.5 on a game when they score with 2 seconds left in the game, and then they take a knee instead of risking that 1 in 1,000 chance of their kick getting blocked or something funky happening. It will screw with the point distributions. All the rules changes continue to help the offense, and obviously they help the passing offense and they help the really good quarterbacks. So I don't think you have to worry as much when you're looking at a team like the Jets and a team like Carolina. I think you got to worry a lot when you've got a team like New England out there that or Atlanta that throws the ball all the time. They're going to benefit more from that rule.
Now, do you think anybody will look at the stats of whether it's actually better to ring the guy's bell and take the penalty than to not hit him and not get the penalty?
I don't think anyone's. I think the defense has learned they can't play defense anymore. And like with the Will Smith concussion movie coming out, the NFL this is largely a cover your ass that they're doing everything they can to prevent that sort of thing. But the one exception to the rule is the read option. The read option is a completely impossible offense to stop, and defenses have figured out how to stop it. When the quarterback hands the ball to the running back, you do indeed ring his bell and light him up and let him know that if he's in a running play, it's legal to hit him. Apparently it's not legal to hit him viciously. I would just hit him viciously and take the 15 yards, couple shots on Kaepernick, and you can be rest assured he'll stay in the pocket the rest of the game.
Well, you would hit him, but you're not really a big guy. Okay, now the best teams at the end of last year, Patriots, Seahawks, Packers, and maybe to a lesser degree, Colts and Ravens. Now, you've already said the Seahawks you don't expect to be as good this year. Are any of those other teams expecting to regress to the mean, or do you expect them to win their division, have really good years?
Well, the book is you expect teams to regress and to revert back to the mean. And a lot of that was because the season win numbers used to have all these teams at 12 wins and all the bad teams at 4.5. And what's happened is that the odds makers and the market they have outsmarted themselves, and footballoutsiders.com kind of leads the charge here with they always forecast the season wins, and they forecast every team between 6 and 10 wins. They assume a significant regression to the mean, I think, based upon like the past 20 years data. However, over the past 4 years, if you took every team forecasted season win at 11 or higher, and you bet those teams to go under, you are 1-7-1, so you're broke. So the good teams have stayed good, and part of that's because of the Seattles and the New Englands and the Green Bays, unless Scott Tolzien is quarterbacking, you continue to win all these games. So I'm reluctant to go against that recent trend. If you have a really good quarterback and an okay team, you win 11 games. So I did not bet Seattle. Although I liked Seattle under 11, I didn't give it out to my clients. I didn't bet it myself. I'll probably nibble a little bit, right at post here. But that data is hard to overcome.
But the Packers have lost their best wide receiver. Is that a key loss?
Sure, but I had the Packers rated as the best team in the NFL. So now they lose Jordy Nelson, and Cobb, their number 2 receiver, actually got banged up in preseason. He's going to play, and now comes down to player personnel, and I don't know it well enough. Adams looks like a capable number 3 wide receiver that steps in. My people tell me that Green Bay has a very strong wide receiving core of backup receivers. I know they don't have much of a tight end, so I don't think it would impact them as much as Carolina, where Benjamin is absolutely crucial to that offense, and Cam Newton, he's their wide receiver that went out, 1,000-yard wide receiver that went out for the year, and their only other viable option is Olsen, which is their safety valve tight end. So I think that injury is way more important to Carolina than Jordy Nelson, even though Jordy Nelson is a slightly better player than Benjamin is.
If you had to pick a sleeper or two, perhaps teams who didn't even make the playoffs last year, but this year you think they'll probably go much further, who would they be?
The Eagles. If in terms of just in general, a team that's going to be much better, the Tennessee Titans, I think, is a great bet over 5.5 wins. And I've argued with a lot of people about this because they have an unproven quarterback in Mariota, comes over from Oregon, and it's a different system than he played in college. The eye test tells me the kid is ready. Over the past 9 years, if you play teams like Jacksonville and Oakland to go over 5.5 wins, you're bankrupt. If you played the Tennessee Titans to go over 5.5 wins the last 9 years, you're 8-1. You lost last year when they only won 2. I really think last year was the aberration. Jake Locker was their quarterback. They beat Kansas City 26-10. They lost 3 games, and then they led the Browns 28-3. And Locker got knocked out for the year, and in came the much-despised Charlie Whitehurst and the equally despised Mettenberger, who wasn't ready. And those two guys just screwed up the entire season. And by the time Blinken, they were 2-10. They lost that game against Cleveland. They're up 28-3. By the time they're 2-10, I really think, like an NBA team at the end of the year, I don't think the Titans wanted to win. I think they tanked. They looked for the ping pong balls. They got the number 2 pick in the draft. I know there's no ping pong balls in the NFL. Bear with me. And I'm taking all the data from the second half of the year and throwing in the garbage can. Their schedule is beyond favorable. They get their field games against Oakland and Cleveland, which is a great revenge spot. They play Indianapolis Week 17. Indy may well have everything wrapped up for their playoff seed at that point. And they're home from September 15th until Halloween. They do not leave Tennessee and their city for 6 weeks. I've never seen that for an NFL team, that long of an early season run at home. Tennessee Titans win 7 games this year.
Now, so Tennessee was one of the 2 worst teams last year, along with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They both got Heisman Trophy quarterback winners. Now, you've already said you're high on the Tennessee Titans. What about Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Jameis Winston? Are they going to do anything?
I think I've got to be high on them as well, but I'm not as high, and a lot of it's just the fact that they're at 6 instead of 5.5. They have 2 really big receivers, Vincent Jackson and the other guy's name escapes me. I'm not good with the players, Evans, but these guys are both like 6'5", and he's the type of guy, if Winston's in trouble, he can scramble and just throw the ball up for grabs, and he'll be fine, similar to Kelvin Benjamin for Carolina. Tampa, I think, went 1-8 straight up in close games last year, including a ridiculous loss to the Bengals where they had moved into field goal range to win the game, and on the key gain, they had 12 men on the field, so they got penalized and lost that gain. So there's a lot to like about Tampa, but I don't like Winston. I like Mariota, and I think I just can't play Tampa. Oh, I could have played him over 5.5, but I can't play him over 6 because I think Winston may well lose all these close games as well. And I don't like what I've seen from him so far in preseason. So I'm still slightly bullish on Tampa Bay, but mostly because that division has so many problems. Carolina without Benjamin's in trouble. Atlanta can't play any defense, and nor can New Orleans. That has a epic fail division written all over it, and somebody has to wind up winning it. Might well be with an 8-8 record.
Well, it was better than they won it with last year.
Sure.
All right. You alluded to this a little bit earlier. Last week we asked a question to bookmaker Jimmy Vaccaro, and we talked about built-in stick-em-on gloves. And years ago, when Lester Hayes played for the Raiders, he had stick-em everywhere. And Jerry Rice had all kinds of stick-em, and that got outlawed. But now it seems to be coming back in the gloves. There's a famous catch last year by Odell Beckham Jr. for the Giants that was literally impossible if you didn't have the stick-em. So, for integrity of the game, do you think the NFL is going to disallow that or keep it for entertainment purposes? And so as not to be completely unfair, Jimmy Vaccaro did say the NFL was going to allow him to use it. What is your opinion?
Why not? Let them have Velcro. Put a little Velcro on the ball to make it easier, just like when I play catch with my little boy with his baseball glove. Fantasy football, I don't know if that's a topic that we're going to talk about, but the amount of money that DraftKings and FanDuel are spending in advertising has bubble written all over it. Oh, my goodness. And all those people playing that, they want to see scoring. They want to see their players score. So why wouldn't the NFL go ahead and endorse that?
Actually, I'm glad you brought up DFS. Do you play? And if not, why not? It seems like free money.
Oh, I don't think it's free money. I think it's extremely difficult. I don't play, and here's why. The only way that to succeed, everyone who plays online poker, and I play on the World Series of Poker.com website, no one is playing. There's about 300 people playing. When I go to a 2-4 game, I guess it's the 255 or the 1-2, there might be 3 tables, and that's the highest table that's being dealt. Where are all the players? And I can tell you, all the players have quit because they've gotten murdered by the pros who are multi-tabling and playing tables at once. So because of that, they've given up, and this is what's going to happen is that, an example, let's take the Giants receivers. Let's assume that
Cruz.
Let's assume Cruz and Beckham suddenly, but surprisingly, got scratched. Okay, and you're sitting on your fantasy football team and you're feeling good. You've studied all week long and you submitted your lineup Saturday night, and you've checked, and all your players are playing, and you're fat, drunk, and happy, and you sit back to watch the games, and you're drawn dead. You're dead because someone else is picking up the next 2 Giant receivers for nothing, putting them into their starting lineups, and now they can play the Adrian Peterson, and they can pick up all these high-priced guys because they're getting 2 starting wide receivers for $1 or whatever it is, and because of that, there is no chance you can beat those guys unless you're doing exactly that. And you know what that is? That's a job job. So that's a really good move to do as an advantage player, but you better be doing those sort of things and know all these players to pick up and be on top of all the injuries.
Very good.
But aren't you? Aren't you on top of all the injuries and all that stuff? I mean, you're betting football anyway, right? So I would assume you're already on top of all that stuff.
How can I possibly be on top of it? It's like the NBA. It's like it's not. He was supposed to play. So here comes the scratch with half an hour left, and I'm frantically pounding in all these other bets, and my hair's on fire, and I'm trying to figure out who's going to get the opening kickoff. And now I got to monitor my sports options or my Don Best, and the sports options isn't even that reliable to get all this information, and then frantically start pounding on my computer to change all my lines while someone else has a bot that's got this all programmed. I mean, yeah, if you're in position to do all that, God bless you, you're going to make a lot of money. But I think, Richard, if you want to do this, that's got to be the only thing you're betting.
I see.
It's got to be DFS Sunday morning, and I'm an advantage player, and I'm doing this and this only. Let me give you an analogy. It would be like me trying to play a bunch of poker tournaments Sunday morning while I'm betting my sports. At some point, instead of having big edges in both, you wind up having negative EV in everything.
I see, yeah.
Good point. Betting sports here in Vegas. Which books are the best? Which books are the worst, and why?
Depends. If you're a $100 bettor, probably the best book is Jerry's Nugget because they have the most in the way of rogue lines and things you can do, but they don't have an app, phone app, so you got to drive to North Las Vegas, which is always interesting. Good coffee shop if you survive the trip in, and good people. And you walk up and you ask for $500 on an NFL game. Maybe they'll give it to you. Maybe they won't. Depends on their mood. Depends on how good a number it is. I think all the independent books are good. To go to the Win, and the places that cater to the locals, like Stations or the Coasts, are good as well. Now, Aliante up in North Las Vegas is good. Now that these places have phone apps, the phone app bettors tend to keep their lines more in place. So I like betting in a place like a Win or a Jerry's Nugget that doesn't have a phone app that So if you were just looking at a place to hang out and get good bets, and I've actually told poker players, hey, if you're ever at a station, let me know, or a Harrah's, and I'll go ahead and text you off some good bets they have on the board.
Well, what if you want to bet more?
Yeah, so if you're a whale and you don't want to bet 300 a game, you probably want to bet at the MGM, or the Westgate, the old Las Vegas Hilton, because those are probably and to some extent Cantor, CGT Technologies, and South Point. Those are all the places that don't kick out winning players, and unless you're trying to like massively angle shoot them on something, they'll absolutely tolerate your action. And
Cantor won't.
I think that would be the best 4 places for the large bettors.
I thought you mentioned Cantor, or did I hear that wrong?
Yeah, Cantor is no longer Cantor. It's called CGT Technologies. They changed their name.
Okay, but they will kick you out, or they will just deny your bets or whatever.
No, Cantor will still take your bets, but it all depends. They don't have a head bookmaker. So, to use an example, you go ahead and bet a season. They have every game for the NFL season, weeks 1 through 16, on their app, and sometimes they'll take $1,000, and sometimes the guy there decides to take $500. It just kind of all depends. It's the Wild Wild West with them.
I was sitting with a friend at lunch, and he had the Cantor app. And he said, when they first started, they would advertise that they would take everybody's bets and they like good players and all that. And he goes, watch this. He goes, pick 4 teams. We just picked 4 teams randomly, and he put in a 4-team parlay for $5. Bet denied. So
interesting.
Maybe it's just him.
Well, to be fair, you don't know the background, so probably your friend has probably parlayed a plus 28-point college football dog to under 45 in the past, and his account is flagged. Don't take parlays from him.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Are there, kind of yes or no, with not necessarily naming names, are there bookies in Las Vegas where you can get bets down outside of the sports books?
Oh, there are, but there's really no reason for them. Why would you, with so many different places still to bet, why would you want to have to deal with a bookie? So I think that their business has pretty much dried up. There's a convenience aspect of it, that you can just phone them. But now with the phone apps, I think most of the local bookies are out of business.
Well, but the other thing is that they take bets that the casinos won't take. So they'll take a lot, just a lot more options. You have a lot more options.
I don't really think most of the casinos will take bets. It's hard to.
I'm not talking about football specifically, but for example, NASCAR matchups. The Westgate will take some, but you know what I mean. There are a lot of kind of the more exotic bets that.
Fair enough. I think when I think of like a local bookie, you're more talking about like a paperhead guy that's got like a website that you go into and bet, and I almost view that as like an offshore wager. It may be originating from someone in Vegas that's got one of those books up and running, but I don't view that as a Vegas. When I think of Vegas bookie, I think of a guy you call to ask for his lines and bet into that, and that guy isn't taking the exotic NASCAR matchups either.
But he might allow you to bet on politics, as to you can bet for or against Donald Trump, whereas the books won't. So
Trump has no chance to get and they bet the hell out of him, and he has no chance. This is from my political experts, and they also tell me that this is fascinating. They say that the Republican Party, I haven't verified this, but I think it's true, spends a massive amount of money in England and other places betting on themselves to win right before Election Day. Have you guys heard this?
No. Keep going.
Well, it's a misconnect, because in the national elections, the Republicans were drawing dead last year in many states and overall. And yet the odds on them got better the night before the election, even though Nate Silver correctly predicted who was going to win every state and got it right within 1.5% with the voting, basically nailed every state, and it's all a done deal. And yet this betting went completely in the opposite direction, and we're asking, how can this possibly be? And apparently it's positive EV to flood the market, Republicans, this is what I've heard, I haven't verified it, with money into these not so liquid betting markets, Because that way, when people are reporting on it, they can say, "Oh, the odds of the Republicans winning, they're now instead of a 3-1 underdog, they're only a 2.3-1 underdog." The money's coming in on them, and it makes more people vote.
Huh.
Okay.
That's pretty weird. By the way, I just should say, my understanding is that there is a lot of money bet by poker players, kind of hooking up through 2+2, where you can bet with no juice. So because they'll find players who like both sides, and you're able to bet without laying 11-10. So there's some value there, but they are poker players, so you do run the risk of, oh, gee, now the guy's broke and he owes you a lot of money, and good luck.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and bet against Allen Boston on something, go right ahead. I think you're better off probably just wagering on it. And if you can get access to a matchbook account, you can essentially do that and pay them 1%. So it winds up working out the same. And also just the aggravation. Even if you never get stiffed by anyone, what's your time worth? They have to drive around and meet someone at the South Point to pick something up, or the Suncoast. It's just too much to have to do. And I mean, it makes sense. And also, in today's day and age, very rare is there a line that's like a flat 7. Usually, the favorite in the sharp books might be, minus a little bit more in the minus, and the dog a little bit less. So you got to negotiate, what the exact price of a no vig should be, and that's where matchbook, is good. But one thing I will say as far as the advantage players, and this is bad for your podcast. I am sorry, Bob. Why everyone wasn't playing poker, and sorry, Richard, and why everyone wasn't playing blackjack, because like you mentioned it best, you can barely afford to tip in those places if you want to, go ahead and make some good money. And poker for years, and I can say even now, I am a much better sports bettor than a poker player, but it's easy still to win at poker. It's not easy to win a ton of money, but your edges in poker, what a blackjack player believes to be the stone cold nuts at 55% for a hand, well, to a poker player, that's just a coin flip.
Yeah, I love when they say that on TV, that's a coin flip. I'd love to go and sell insurance to people there on those coin flips.
We mentioned, we were talking a little bit earlier about daily fantasy sports, and a couple days ago, the Attorney General in the state of Michigan said he thinks this is against the law in Michigan, and yet the Detroit Lions have an account with one of their big advertisers is DraftKings, and the Pistons have an account with FanDuel, and so there are all these big sporting teams, professional teams, have these sponsorship with FanDuel or DraftKings or FanDuel, and yet now the Attorney General says it's illegal here, I think. What do you think is going to happen there? I know you're not a legal analyst, but do you have any thoughts?
Well, their valuations are so high that I'm sure they can buy off the right people to get all this to fly through, even though it's clearly gambling. I think it's a complete house of cards. It's internet poker all over again. Like I said, poker was the hottest thing, especially when we saw Fossilman and Moneymaker, winning the World Series of Poker. And now there's nobody playing poker. I mean, relatively speaking, online. Compared to how it was, and I really think that how they're giving away these 100% bonuses. I know that it takes a long time to earn these bonuses. This has Bubble and House of Cards written all over it. All that money is being spent on advertising. That money's gone. So for these guys to make money, they have to make literally $1 billion to break even on their business model. How are they going to be able to make that money? It's got to be against the recreational players that are putting their money in. And how many times are these guys going to enter these 50-50s, pick a pretty good lineup, and lose before they sour on this whole experience and realize that the odds of them winning is much worse than the average Keno game.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that the business model is really kind of a pump and dump scheme where their game plan is to get bought out or to get an IPO, where the guys who own them cash out for a big payday, and they're not, and then if it all falls apart, they don't care. But there are a lot of people actually who are writing about the fact that this is not sustainable. This cannot continue, and they don't seem to want to fix it.
And they're taking, I believe, I don't have the exact numbers, but close to 10% in all these games. So they're dealing a game that if you throw darts, it's twice the edge of roulette. But the problem is that if you throw darts, you're going to get crushed. You're not going to lose because the wheel is completely biased towards all the favorites. So you're going to bet on 33 black when there's people out there that know that 33 black's only going to come up once out of every 200 times.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Steve Fezzik, we got about 1 minute left for your segment. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you or learn about your picks, how would they do that?
Yeah, and one thing, I give out free content at Fezzik Sports. There's at least one guy pretending to be me and selling picks pretending to be me, so be very careful. Everything at pregame.com is legit. I also have a product out there called Lifetime Sports Winner with Kevin O'Neill that is indeed me, where we did some tapes about winning. I want to caution everyone, if you're betting $100 a game or less, you shouldn't be buying picks because the house vig is so great because of that. You can't afford to go ahead and purchase from an expert. You really got to be betting in the hundreds of dollars for that to even make sense. So I've got free content over at pregame.com, and I go ahead and sell my plays as well. And if you believe in the short term, I'm doing great. If you believe in the long term, I actually, after I won my 2 Hiltons, I had a long 3-year losing streak. So buyer beware. I firmly believe I reinvented myself completely, and I really like the stuff that I'm doing. And the best evidence I can give to a 1-game sample size I did give out for free, the Minnesota Vikings Monday Night Football plus 3.5 back in June, and they're laying 2.5 right now. And that's the way you love it when you see stuff like that go on.
A 1-in-a-row streak. This is pretty impressive. Actually, you don't know. I mean, touts always brag about their winning. They forget about the others. You're saying you have losing streaks. Don't you know how to be a tout?
I went 0-10 with. I posted 10 bets, and a lot of them were. I said, "Oh, I'm leaning this way." Before the NCAA tournament, the opening night, I went 0-10. That's hard to do. I put up a free product, the Fezzik's Furious 5, where I forecast the line moves for the coming the coming week, and I hit like 85% of the line moves that would occur. And I'd be the first to say, guys, I am way better at predicting the line moves that are going to occur than actually being able to pick who is going to be able to win the games. You want a college football line move projection?
Sure.
Sure, and probably, unfortunately, your podcast doesn't go up for a while, so it will have already moved, but we'll take a look. Opening college football. Let's look at the Sunday night game, Purdue-Marshall. It is painted 63, the screen right now. I'll predict that total closes 59 by the time that game actually kicks off.
Very good. That'll be 2 days before this show airs, so we will know by that time whether you're brilliant or a dummy. Thank you very much, Steve Fezzik. It's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you, Richard. If I ever get you back into the Final Four, you will beat me again.
I've been barred, so you'll have a better chance next time.
All right. The South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. This is more than anybody else has. Every Thursday in September, they'll have drawings at 8:15 p.m. where 25 people will spin the big wheel in the showroom. Wheel has 20 positions. The 10 worst payoffs are $1,000. 8 positions are for $5,000, and the final 2 are $10,000 and $25,000. This means half the time you win, you get $5,000 or more. To earn tickets for the drawing, all you have to do is play. A limit of 1,600 tickets a day. For video poker, $1 coin in gets you a ticket. And for slot players, you get 3 tickets for every dollar coin in. The new semester, free video poker classes will begin next week, Wednesday afternoons, September 16th in the Grandview Lounge. The entire schedule may be found on bobdancer.com. I just read the online version of Las Vegas Advisor. They have the classes 1 week off. And so they can correct that online. But the hard copies, if you see that, will say the classes will start on September 9th. That is not true. I will physically be at the Grandview Lounge telling people I'm sorry, but there's not going to be a class that day. At the Palms. Every Friday night, they have a drawing at 7 o'clock where the winners share $10,000. You do not have to be there to win, but you must collect the prize before midnight or it evaporated. They have extra entries on Fridays in the afternoon and in the evenings. Play for prizes for between now and September 18th. You earn Costco gift cards. For the following 2 weeks, you earn Fresh and Easy gift cards. I've been told Fresh and Easy is a market and not a feminine hygiene product. I don't know. The gift cards may be earned and redeemed Monday through Friday up to $190 on each of those days at a rate of 0.20%. You keep your points. Videopoker.com. It's the best place to play a lot of games. If you sign up for the gold membership, $8.95 a month, $79.95 a year, allows you to get correction on many of the games. It's a good place to practice quick quads, for example. It also allows you to look at games that will be coming to your casino later, and you want to just check them out. Now, they have a contest weekly, and the contest this week is called Triple Wheel Poker. This is a new game. It isn't in a lot of casinos yet, but it will be. This is a 7-coin per line game. You can find it triple play, 5 play, 10 play. Every time you get dealt 3 of a kind or higher, you get to spin one of the wheels. On the low-valued ones, it's a bronze wheel. A little bit higher is the silver wheel. And if you get 4 of a kinds or straight flushes, it's going to be the gold wheel. And so the wheel spins automatically, and whatever it gets, you get the award. It's a game. It's a game type that I like primarily because you do not have to know a new strategy. If you know how to play 8-5 bonus, then 8-5 bonus triple wheel will play. You already know how to play that, and the expected value will be higher in the triple wheel version than it is in the regular version. So if you see this game on an All-Star Poker or something, a lot of slot directors have made up their mind, well, 8-5 bonus is the level we're going to offer at this casino, and this is a way to play the same game that you already know how to play to get an extra 0.1 or 0.2% out of it. All right.
Is that game already out in the casinos?
It is being sold. How many places it is out, it is actually in, I don't know, nor... There is on videopoker.com. You can look to find out where the game is placed. I have not looked for this game in particular, and it doesn't tell you pay schedules. So knowing that the game is or denomination, so knowing it's out there for nickels at a particular casino doesn't do me any good. There are players who just want to know where the game is. They don't really care. They like spin poker, and they don't really pay attention to pay schedules. For the most part, they don't listen to our show. All right, Richard, we got 45 seconds left. Tell them how to get our product.
Well, first of all, we really encourage your questions. So send them to us at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com or facebook.com/gamblingwithanedge. Or you can tweet them at me at RWM21. If you want the show delivered to you automatically, you can sign up for that at iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or my site, richardmunchkin.com. And to get archives of all the old shows, you can find those at bobdancer.com.
Very good. All right. We thank Steve Fezzik for coming on the air talking football. Thank you, Richard. Go out and hit lots of royal flushes, everybody. Good day.
You've been listening to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts, Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin. Subscribe to the show in iTunes, and episodes will be delivered to you automatically every week. Archived versions of past shows may be found at bobdancer.com and richardmunchkin.com. We welcome emails at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Bob Dancer and Richard Munchkin are both available on Facebook and welcome your questions. The sponsors for the show are the South Point Hotel, Casino and Spa, the M Resort, the Palms Casino Resort, and the website videopoker.com. Join us again next week for another Gambling with an Edge.